NAIDOC week of the focus on our elders, and we recognise the importance and the contribution of the elders in community and in learning and their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. So thank you everyone for coming today. Welcome to Ready to Teach Week. So this week we have a series of events. We've got the upcoming events for today on screen. Special welcome if anyone is new to teaching at UQ, and for this session, a very special welcome and thank you to our students for providing their perspectives on learning experiences in 2023 so far. Of course, Italy is always very keen to get the student voice back, even though much of our work, we work with the teaching and learning staff on providing support and resources. We're very conscious of being informed by the student voice and connecting to the students and connecting students to staff wherever we possibly can. As you know, Italy's, so we'll just do a little bit about what we do. Many resources for staff. We have quite a lot of formal professional learning programs. We engage in quite a bit of the governance across the university through various committees, but our services include the e-learning support, our learning analytics, blending your course design. As I said, formal programs, but really we're just here for ad hoc advice as well. Students, evaluation of teaching and learning. And we're just working on a student voice panel, which we hope to engage in many more of our activities. So welcome, great opportunity this week, I think, to maybe pick up some tips, maybe help navigate through that getting ready to teach. Great opportunity to network and engage and learn from each other, share your experiences, your challenges, and what's working and perhaps what's not working. So thank you, everyone, and I'll hand back over to Dom to run the panel for today.
Thank you, Karen, and welcome everyone to Ready to Teach Week. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country on which we gather. So I'm going to try a few things on Zoom to hopefully make this engagement work. We have 4 students who joined us today from very different parts of UQ to share some of their stories and to share some of the work they've done understanding what's happening with students across the university. So I'm going to ask them to annotate slides as we go to give some responses so we can get some quick responses across, and then we can dive into where there's areas of difference and similarity and explore things. I'm going to ask them each to introduce themselves and pick a stamp from the annotation tools. So if you ever want to do this, and Josh, if you click under more, there's the opportunities to annotate slides. And if you can pick a stamp and a color, it's a way you can respond on slides as we go so that we can quickly get a response across. We'll also be doing some polling of everyone in the group, so we'll be able to see some differences and similarities between where staff and students are at. So I'm going to ask each student to quickly introduce themselves, add their stamp to this slide so we can see where they're working and how that's going, and then we'll get into some of the questions throughout the day. So Elias, could I ask you to start?
Yep. Hi everyone, I'm Elias, my pronouns are they, them. So I'm first and foremost a student representative. I study a Bachelor of IT. Here's my little stamp, hopefully that works. And I also previously been a UQ Union representative as the Queer Officer in 2021, Disability Officer for 2022.
Thanks, Elias. YY.
Hi everyone, my name is YY. I was recruited because I was part of the student engagement SSP for the HAPS faculty, but I'm also the student representative for HAPS Teaching and Learning Committee as well. I'm doing my master's in social work studies at the moment, but I also graduated from psychology a couple of years back. So I'm a loyal HAPS fan at UQ. Yeah. Let me try and annotate.
Yeah, awesome. Abraham.
Hello, my name is Abraham. I'm also part of the Learning Space SSP with Karen and Chris. I'm also graduating tomorrow with a Master's of Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And I've been part of UQ since 2020. I previously completed a graduate diploma. I'm also a UQ Union counselor.
Thanks, Abraham. Could I get you to pick a stamp or some form of annotating the slides so we can We have a start. Thank you so much. And Josh.
Hey everyone, morning. I have the privilege of being this year's Union Treasurer, and I study a Bachelor of Politics, Philosophy and Economics Honours in my third year. And this is highly embarrassing, but I can't find the link to the slides to annotate them. So
they should be on your screen. So so it should be shared already. So you're just annotating through Zoom. So under the Zoom tools, there's the 3 little dots for more and annotate.
Okay, you're gonna have to come back to me because.
All right, no problem. I will be asking you questions as we go. No problem at all. Sorry about this, Josh. Okay, let me just take a quick screenshot so I know what I'm doing. And then I'll jump into the first warm-up question, which hopefully is pretty easy. And what I'd like everyone to do, for the students, can I get you to pick a cat that best represents 2023 so far? For everyone else, I'm also going to open a Zoom poll and ask you to pick your cat. All right, so if that's, I've got too many things on my screen, so it's, there we go. And Josh, I'm going to come to you first to pick a cat. And then the more important question is why that cat?
This is a big question, isn't it?
It is. It's a tough one. It's hard to wrap up 6 months in a cat, but we're going to try.
So do you want me to describe my cat?
Pick a number and then tell us a little bit about why.
I went with number 8, purely because that kitty looks determined. He looks stoic. He looks determined to go on into semester 2. He's gone through some stuff, I think. He's seen things, but he's gone forth. And that's where I'm at.
Thanks, Josh. Really appreciate it. And then Abraham, could I ask you about why number 6?
I guess it being my last semester, just a lot going on. So yeah.
Yep, I can see that. All right, so I'm going to end the poll and share the responses really quickly. So hopefully you can all see 2, 5, 6, 8 and 9 were the popular cats. So I'm going to stop sharing. So this is sort of the pattern we'll go throughout. We'll try a few different things. And hopefully the other answers be a little bit more deep and insightful, but it's always great to start with which cat are you feeling. The other thing that's hiding behind some of these cats is they're all generated by AI, which sort of feels somewhat appropriate and a little bit creepy for this year. And we'll get some more questions about generative AI later in the day or in the session. Okay, so students, could I get you to have a quick look at what are some of the key things impacting students' abilities to engage in study in 2023? I'm going to relaunch the poll. Other people can add this in.
I'm a heart now, FYI. I forget about that.
Awesome, Josh. Okay. Wai, I'm going to go to you first to ask, why did you pick these ones?
I think cost of living is like a big topic at the moment among students. A lot of them are like actually wanting to work. Like, this might be bad to say, but they rather choose to work and pick up more shifts at work rather than going to uni, because it's like if they go to uni, then they can't really work and then they can't really afford rent or like, you know, food and stuff like that. So they would just rather go to work. And also like work demands, it's also like in the dilemma, like if my workplace gives me more shifts, but I have like a tutorial at the same time, do I want to go to like 1 hour tutorial, or like do I want to pick out a 3 or 4 hour shift and, you know, potentially get more money that can contribute to my cost of living? Yeah, and I do find that because I'm in a master's program, so a lot of like my peers are like actually in the older range, and cost of living is really like a huge issue, and some of them do have a family as well. So yeah.
Thank you. Elias, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think cost of living for me, because so Centrelink, because I'm independent, is a maximum of around 660 a fortnight. My rent is 300 a week, meaning that I have to work to be able to study, which is awful. And a lot of courses that I do these days are like, uni is your priority. I'm like, yeah, but also so is my living. So it's a difficult thing.
Thank you. Abraham, you hit exams as well.
Instead of exams, I meant assignments because I don't
Yeah.
have any exams, but I think the main problem is the constant assignments every period of the time. So you feel like you're just, studying to write, assignments, not to, properly learn the concepts throughout the year. So it's just so you could complete a task and then move on and then start another task. So yeah.
And Josh, do you want to wrap up this one?
Yeah, I think everyone went through cost of living pretty well. I guess work demands is just, you kind of have to, it's kind of expected that you work as a student in this era. And I think a lot of lecturers don't really conceptualize that, and they expect you to be able at the drop of the hat just to devote all your time to something, which I guess is fair from a learning perspective, but also just for a lot of people I know and myself, sometimes just not realistic.
All right, thank you. So on the poll, number one was by far and away where most people felt the biggest impact on students' ability to study this year. Okay, let me find my buttons, get it clear, and let's go for another question. So I know some people here have been involved in looking at spaces, so I wanted to have a quick ask around what spaces students use on campus. But I'll start individually and then might jump out. I'm not going to poll on this one. Where will I go first? Get my screen right. Elias, I might start with you.
Sure. So I spend most of my time in Science Learning Center, despite being an IT student, because IT Learning Center is basically it's not really a learning center, let's be real. And I also spend a lot of my time in the Queer Collective in the disability room. So a lot of the UQ spaces as well. And also occasionally just finding an empty tutorial room that's available so that I can turn the lights off, because a lot of learning spaces aren't necessarily sensory friendly for me.
Thanks. Why?
Mostly the library. Like this is like a tip. I really love like the architectural library. Like they have everything over there, and it's not a popular library among the students, so I like it there. But I also like to like random benches or like tables just all around campus. So like informal spaces like that is really helpful as well, especially when I have like 1 hour break in between classes and it's not during lunchtime. So I'll just pick up and then like just go through some learning materials and stuff like that. But most of the time I'm off campus working as well, so I don't really use the learning spaces that much.
Why? How did you find the architecture library?
It's actually, I think they have a slight renovation a couple of years ago. So when I was an undergrad, it was not that pleasant, the area, but then now it's really good. Like they have like a small kitchenette outside and they have toilets and it's like quiet and not a lot. I think my main reason is because not a lot of students know about that library. So yeah, it's like my secret spot.
Abraham, I know you're involved in a student staff partnership in this area.
Yeah, I actually chose UQ spaces. I use the APS common room quite often because no one really knows about it, so it's quite empty most of the time. Yeah.
Thanks. You also marked the UQ Union spaces as an area that you use.
Yeah. Yeah. So the APS lounge room is part of the UQ Union.
Okay.
So yeah, it's right next to the red room and the other collectives rooms.
Cool. Thanks. Josh, did you want to add anything? You turned your camera off.
Yeah. I clicked library because prior to this year, I was a sucker for studying in the law library. Having that monitor there, I can plug a HDMI cable into. It's so good. If you're studying with friends, want to be a bit louder, Mod West, definitely the way to go. It's a great space, and I hope it doesn't disappear. And then this one's a little bit of a joke, but UQ Spaces, because I study my office quite a lot, because why wouldn't you?
Yep, absolutely understand. Okay. All right, so going on a little bit more into engagement. So what classes are worth attending and where? So I've got the table of the different types of on-campus, online, synchronous, whether it's a Zoom or Teams meeting, or engaging with them in a recording afterwards, and have lectures, tutorials, practicals, and workshops. I know there's many more classes, many more ways to engage, but I thought this would give us a start.
When you say worth attending, do you mean like for the learn? I don't really understand the question.
Okay, which ones would you turn up to? So are you likely to come to a lecture on campus, tutorial on campus, practical on campus, or would you be more likely to turn up to an online, a Zoom lecture, or just watch the recording of a lecture? So have strong feelings for on campus coming through. All right, I might start with you.
Yeah, I think I'm
You said
just
everything on campus.
Yeah, I'm just someone who prefers attending everything in person. It's just much easier. It's like everyone in the same space doing it together rather than online. You don't know what other people are doing, or like even if it's recorded. I always tell myself that I will like watch it afterwards, but it will never ever happen. So what happened was like earlier in the semester, my work shift sort of like overlapped with one of the lectures, and I always tell myself like, okay, I'll catch up during this weekend, but it never happened for the first half of semester. And when I finally managed to sort of sort out my work shift and I go in for the lecture, I was like, oh yeah, I've been missing out all these things all along, and then like met other people who attend that particular lecture. And obviously tutorials and practicals or like workshops are more valuable when it's in person, because you sort of get that role play or like more hands-on kind of activities going on, which is sort of not really as engaging when it's like online or recorded. But then again, based on like the SSP focus group that we had earlier in the year, some students actually prefer lectures being online so that they can have like I think this is mainly because of the language barriers. Also, they can have that closed caption option on Zoom, and then they find it easier to follow. And then if it's recorded, they can play it at a slower speed, and then just sort of go back to where they need to sort of relearn again. Yeah, so it's like a 50-50 mix. But personally, I do prefer everything in person. Yeah.
Abraham, I might jump to you. So again, you did some work in this space.
Yeah, sure. I'd say I personally prefer, tutorials, workshops, seminars, sort of environments. I'd previously studied in the EAT faculty, and a lot of the courses were either lectures or tutorials, and I found that I never really attended the lectures in person. I always, I guess, took for granted that they were recorded, so I didn't attend it. But when I moved to the Bell faculty for my master's, I noticed a lot of the classes were seminar based, and I really enjoyed it because it wasn't like the traditional way of, the lecturer would be discussing and you would just be listening. It would be more of a conversation, so I found that more stimulating. But I also value classes being recorded because it allows you to, go through them at your own pace at a later point, or whether if you're unwell, you can attend it again so you don't miss out. So yeah.
Thank you. Josh, can I get you to add anything else you'd like to this one?
Yeah, I think Yan convinced me on the online one, because looking back over the year, some courses such as like economics, for example, you really want to be able to skip back and review that because it can be quite content dense. But generally, I think, as you can see by the prolific love hearts on the top row, I'm heavily in favour of like the experiential learning you get from being on campus, and I just feel like you miss out on that by being at home and not coming into campus. So definitely on campus all the way.
Thank you. And Elias, did you want to add any last words on this one?
Yeah. For me, lectures are always recorded because I can do 2x speed and I can pause them. Due to learning disabilities, that works best for me. But I also recognize how important online can be for people with disabilities that can't make it onto campus or need that option. I think that's often a conversation that isn't had in spaces that I'm in, at least. However, attending tutorials and workshops in person for me is vital. If I don't attend, I will likely fail because of like not graded attendance, but graded participation. So that's my experience.
Thank you. I think that rings true for many, and that importance of the diversity of our students. Okay, let's keep going. So many of our staff are working hard to try and support students to engage more in their studies. So I have a couple of opportunities here, and I know you looked at how students engage both in their studies and in extracurricular particularly. So which of these ways would you recommend for staff to engage students? And I'm going to try reopening the poll as well, so we can get a range of options coming in. And if anyone out there wants to suggest some other options that we should be talking about or thinking about, please feel free to throw them in chat. We can put them to our panel. Okay. Well, I might give you the start for this one.
Yeah. Well, first off is active classes. So students do really enjoy having that mini discussion during tutorials or even during lectures as well. For everyone just to chime in and offer their opinion. So it's sort of spark like their learning process as well. But at the same time, they also hope that when the lecturers or the tutors are asking a question, they do hope that they get more time to answer a question so they don't feel like they are being put on the spot. And also, I guess it's also because it's very specific to HEP students. They do want to know why they are learning certain things. Like, how is this going to be helpful for a specific skill that I'm going to use in the workplace in the future? Or how is this relevant to this particular set of things that I'm doing? I think we do get a bit of feedback from the dental students that sometimes they don't know why they're doing certain things because the tutors doesn't really explain it clearly. So it will be helpful for them to know what the exact outcome is and how it's going to be helpful for them. So they are like more engaged and they know like the value of learning a certain thing. Other things is also like having mini icebreaker. Oh, I guess it's sort of being active in class as well, but having icebreaker at the beginning of semester. Surprisingly, a lot of students actually like that, even though you know they might look a bit disappointed or upset when the tutor's like, oh, let's do an icebreaker now, because it helps them to engage and connect with their peers even more. So it's also sort of help to serve as a form of encouragement, like, oh, are you gonna go for tutorial today? Oh, let's go together, that kind of thing. And obviously better timetabling. I'm not sure how much control or like influence like the TNL community have over this, but a lot of them are providing the feedback that when they have placements until like 4 p.m. in the afternoon, they have to come back for classes at uni from like 5 to 7, or even like they have very odd timings, like they have a class from like at 8 in the morning, and then the next class is 2 or 4 p.m. Later in the day, which sort of mess up their ability to work as well. So there's a lot of different issues. Yeah.
Thank you. Josh, I might go to you next.
Kind of a difficult question from my perspective, but I think the biggest takeaway from the last semester would be having more engaging and exciting classes. because everything has been pretty well explained. It's just some of my lectures have just been formatted in a way which is kind of boring. I kind of miss the more exciting classes of, yeah, like break off into small discussion groups so you can sort of chat amongst people and get to know people, and also sort of have a bit more of a participatory debate, because you just can't really participate when there's like 40 people in a class. And that kind of gets people a lot more engaged, and also I think it also incentivizes people to actually do the readings, or at least in arts, because like no one's can actually know if you know what you're talking about if it's like 40 people being silent in a room. But if you're in a group of 4 people, it's kind of embarrassing if you don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, definitely breakout groups and sort of small class discussions, which then get sort of piped back into the overall lecture or prac or whatever. That I found that really helpful.
Thank you. Elias.
For me, small regular assessments has been the best thing to keep me responsible. And I also find that that helps, at least in my little school as well. Being able to have, like, say, weekly programming or quizzes keeps me engaged to make sure that I feel the pressure to stay on top of things. And I realize that doesn't really reflect a lot of other schools. Yeah, also better timetabling. Last semester I had about 3 8 a.m.s, and that unfortunately conflicted with my reasonable adjustments, but that still wasn't able to be withheld because of how the timetabling system worked. So I had to cop 8 a.m.s, which sucked. And I understand, like, there's a lack of classrooms and all these things, but it just, yeah, it was an experience that I absolutely hated, and it made it really difficult for me to learn. So yeah.
Right, thank you. Alice, can I put one more challenge to you in that?
Yeah.
Early on, Abraham was talking around some of the challenge of over-assessment, and rather than having, you know, this is small regular assessment, sometimes regular assessment can be large regular assessment. Do you have any advice around how to manage that tension of small regular assessments? Really useful to keep students engaged, but if you go too much, you can be overwhelming and over-assessing.
Yeah. It's a fine line, and I'm not a course coordinator, so I can't really pick and choose as to where that works. I know that that works for me because I take a varying different types of courses and I don't take the same type. So if there's very little chance of me getting 2 courses that also have like weekly assessments, or they have different formats, such as like journals that I have to do every week. So I guess the balance can come down to the school and the way that you teach, but also considering how much value what the regular assessments have and contribute. If it is just a 10% and it's a massive quiz, like more than 5 questions, consider that percentage and why that is weighted the way it is. Because yes, it is a minimum of 10%, but it could be more if you were trying to push for more in the content wise. Yeah.
Thank you. Abraham, can I jump to you?
Yeah, sure. I think from the SSP, one of the most important things we learned was the importance of having an inclusive and supportive environment within the classroom space, because a number of students go through various different things in life, whether it's having a disability, a physical disability, or going through, you know, a difficult mental health period in their lives. So it's important to try to create a safe space for all the students that are in attendance. So, and if they're able to feel comfortable, they're more likely to be engaged and perform better at UQ. So.
Thank you. So I'm just going to share the poll results with everyone. So hopefully there's not a huge difference between what the people who responded voted versus what was happening on the screen. There are a couple of points where I think there's differences there which we can unpack and look into in the future. Okay, so sharing. Oh. Okay, so I'm going to jump this one. So I'm going to start with getting into generative AI and the big broad question of, is generative AI beneficial? And I know this is oversimplification and a little bit silly, so you're welcome to vote in multiple points along the scale. I'll relaunch my poll again because I'm interested in everyone's response. Okay. Elias, I think you took 2 positions. Everyone else has gone in the middle. So I'm going to start with you.
Okay, first off, generative AI has almost no effect on my specific major of user experience because quite literally the whole point of user experience is to be human-centered and human-designed, and you can't get that out of generative AI. So on a functional level, it's not impacting my studies. It's not changing the way that I learn. I'm not really worried about my peers using it because if they do, it's going to be very clear that it's not what it's supposed to be. But I think it's causing more issues for me outside of my studies in just the ethics of it that's been applied to a lot of different things, such as taking in, a cheesy example is I'm in a lot of fandoms for say like TV series and book series. And unfortunately, a lot of the fandom content is being fed into AIs without the creator's consent and causing a lot of ethical issues and just, yeah. So I personally hate generative AI.
All right, thank you. Who will I go to next? Abraham, you were right in the middle.
Yeah, I'd say it's going to be a big part of society, regardless of whether people like it or not. It's just how things are going to move forward. I think the core thing we should focus on is if students are using it at university for completing their assignments, why are they doing that? Is the type of assessments being made, maybe then we need to look at how the type of assessments provided to students, whether there's a better way to assess how the content students are learning. But yeah, that's basically my thoughts.
Why, and then we're going to finish with Josh.
I think it's quite useful in some way, maybe because like for what I'm doing, like social work, so it's really helpful when you fit in like a case study and like, oh, what are some like support system or support services that we can sort of provide to clients or like the case study. It sort of gives you like a starting point to brainstorm on different things. But the downside of it is we actually did this in a tutorial before together with the tutor. They just come up with like very weird assumptions about that particular client, which is not helpful with the case study at all. And it's not something that you would want to do or like practice when you're working with real life clients because you can never assume things. And yeah, so it's like good and bad, but I guess it applies to across different disciplines as well. You get to have more idea generation from AI and get more inspiration, and it's like a good starting point. But when it comes down to like very specific stuff, I don't think it's good to rely on them because they are not human after all, and they don't have that connection that we do have with other people. Yeah.
Thank you. Josh, sorry, Josh, before you start, can I ask you to start at the personal level and then we'll get you to jump into the union level, if that's okay? So I know there's been some interesting challenges across the university that the union's seeing.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I'd say from a personal level, it's beneficial because it just, like, you can literally ask it, like, are there any typos or grammatical errors in this entire essay? And it will just point them out to you. Like, it really just streamlines so many, like, if you have any set defined task, which is like very easily definable, and just say, hey, how can I do this? It'll just tell you in such a simple way. So I found it like beneficial for just like streamlining simple things you have to do a lot, like even like references. Sometimes it can like find good references for you. If you're like, hey, I want to write an essay about this and this, can you find me some papers, which would be really useful citations. Half the time it does just make things up, but the other half of the time you find some really good papers. So I'd say it's quite useful from a personal level, but I have a feeling that other people don't use it the way I do, just from things I hear. And I feel like people are using it to do all their content, which is a shame. From the union level, I think we've been focusing on making sure that basically people are aware of the policies around it, and don't unintentionally act contrary to that. because one course has said X and the other course has said Y, because of the lack of, I would say, standardized policy about how you can use it between courses. And some lecturers talk about it a lot. Some lecturers bury it in the ECP because they've been told to, but don't really mention it. So I would say, just from the union perspective, making sure no one is basically done for on academic misconduct because just poor communication occurred. But I think the university obviously has done quite a lot and sort of stepped up the game once we raised those concerns early in the year. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Josh. All right, I'm going to share the poll results, which surprised me a little bit. So we had a few people at the far end of it's causing more problems than benefits, but a pretty strong leaning towards the 4s and 5s, and even someone going way past it's the best up to number 7, which could be a slip, but it could be a huge endorsement of generative AI. I think this is a really challenging and interesting area for us to keep working on and to keep exploring. So thank you. I'm going to step back one. See if I can do that. So another challenge we've had as we've come through COVID and getting back onto campus is we're keen to try and help students connect and belong and feel a sense that this is a place where everyone can be, and everyone can study, and everyone can succeed. So we have a range of ideas. YY, you mentioned before icebreakers. Are any of these you'd recommend? And then, yeah, let's start there. I'm going to stop sharing my poll.
Well, other than icebreaker, like I think I mentioned earlier as well, like having that discussion with the peers in tutorials. So one is like to get that engagement and sort of being put in a forced situation that everyone gets to interact with one another, but also being able to bounce off ideas from one another, because like, again, in HAPS, everyone's like from a very different background, and it's good to hear like multiple perspectives. But also connecting with extracurricular activities, so that it's not something that is just, I just only come to uni just to study, to learn and stuff like that, but also being able to make that connection outside of classroom and meet people from across like other disciplines and other faculties as well, and not just being in the HAPS faculty or like whoever's in your program. Yeah.
Thank you. Elias?
I think a lot of my connecting and how I engage and get other students to engage is often through club societies and extracurricular activities. But in class settings, almost all of my courses are team assessments, and that is just the style that I am taught through. But I find often having also not changing up the seating arrangement or forcing students to change seating arrangement helps those, one, with consistency and routine, and two, with having a support network or support students they always go back to in class as well has been really good. Yeah.
Thanks. Abraham?
I guess YY and Elias have both talked a lot about both areas, but I would say, yeah, connecting with extracurricular activities, that's the best way that I, connect with other UQ students outside the classroom environment. Yeah.
And as someone coming to the end of their studies here, Abraham, which do you think was more important for you, those connections in class or the extracurricular ones?
I would say extracurricular, because you meet them outside of this classroom environment. And then I've been lucky where quite a few of the people that I've met are actually in my class, so you end up speaking more afterwards in class. But yeah, it hasn't really worked the other way around, where you might meet a group of people within group assessments, but outside of the group assessment space you don't really communicate, because you're there just to complete assignments, make sure you get the grades necessary. So yeah.
Thanks. And Josh?
Yeah, I would say not the biggest fan of team assessment, just from past experiences, unless it's optional and you can do it with people who you want to do it with. I found that's a model which is quite successful for some of my courses. I'm a big fan of sort of work just sort of work group in class and icebreakers, but I'd say I'd sort of follow everyone else and say clubs and societies, extracurriculars are by far the most important, which is sort of why I'm generally in favor of on campus learning, because like just talking to people who are about to graduate, who are in clubs and societies, like just there's just such a vast difference for people's social experiences at university of them relative to people who've just never really got involved in clubs and societies. Like it's just wild how many people and how much experiences you get, especially being involved in the executive. You get so many more, I'd say, real world skills of just sort of managing people, running events. Just yeah, it's very important, I'd say.
Yeah. And Josh, how much do you think, and I'll ask anyone else who wants to jump in, should it be that we try and get all students to those sort of experiences, or let students get through without engaging in that level?
I don't think you should like force it, because like so many people have their own specific requirements and lifestyles, and they might have their own friend groups, they might not be as inherently social, but just promoting it and heavily encouraging it, I think, is something we probably don't do as much, and it's important.
Thank you. So does anyone else want to say anything on that one before I move on? Cool. Okay. All right. So I'd like to finish up by going through everyone and ask one at a time. I'm going to start with YY. What advice would you have for academics who are working at the moment, preparing for semester 2, about to start the semester, and want to start the semester in the right way and be really supportive of their students?
I think with regards to being inside the classroom, I'm just looking at based on what we found from our project. I think one of the big things is what I mentioned earlier, is being able to link the learning and the learning process to learn the outcomes and how it can be applied to their future practice and like practical applications in real life, because I think that's a very important process for the students to be able to link what they learn and how they can use it and how it's beneficial for their future career. And that sort of helps them to learn and also encourage them to want to learn and be more engaged in class. If you happen to be in a teaching position, you can inject some brain breaks into class. So like, for example, throw in a joke or a meme. Students love that. Sort of like a break as well from learning all the content. Again, I'm not sure how much control, but also timetabling issue is like a huge thing for students. So if that can be taken into consideration, even at a very minimal level, I think students will be very appreciative that they are able to engage their study commitment and their non-studying commitment like family or work commitment. So yeah.
Thanks. Josh?
Oopsies. Yeah, I'd just say be understanding of what a lot of students are going through in terms of working, cost of living, and just sort of be understanding. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. Abraham?
I guess picking an appropriate learning space based on the type of content that you're trying to deliver, but also trying to move away from a lecture sort of environment, because from all the surveys and focus groups we've had, students don't really enjoy that. So you're less likely to have that knowledge being absorbed by the student. It's more so the lecturer will be able to speak at the student rather than have a conversation and create a form of free thinking. So yeah.
Thanks. And Elias?
I think resonating what Josh said and more empathizing about being empathetic, it's always been an impactful thing for me to know that my course coordinators genuinely care and also be passionate and excited about what you're teaching. Being able to share on that passion, show like, oh, this isn't like necessarily relevant to the content, but by the way, here's an extra thing that I'm really think is really cool and exciting. And I think that if you are interested in this field, to continue like getting involved in this or get engaged with this. And that excitement and passion has always made my day when going through my courses in education.
Thank you. So I'm going to wrap up the session and say thank you so much to YY, Alias, Josh, and Abraham. I really appreciated your insights and your contributions. I'd like to highlight a couple of other things that are coming up in the day. Also, we have, all right. So some of the things that are coming up before I quickly wrap up is that we have an exciting activity running throughout this week about using the campus to facilitate crucial movements. So we have a scavenger hunt running around the campus over the next few days. So if you'd like to get involved, get on campus and explore, please do. The details are on this slide. They're on the Italy website, and there's an opportunity on Thursday around lunchtime to catch up with the people behind this to talk more and to get into some of those exciting ideas around engagement and connecting and being on campus that have been raised today. So if you haven't had a chance to sign up for this one, I encourage it. I'm hoping to be there, and I'm looking forward to getting onto the scavenger hunt. At 10:30, so in just over 10 minutes, we are going to have our next discussion about small changes, big impact, but increasing participation and inclusion in our classrooms. Again, highlighting on some of the ideas that have been discussed today and ways we can implement them, and some exciting projects happening across the university that we can draw on to make a big difference in our teaching as we go. So I'm going to wrap up there. I'm going to say, again, thank you to everyone who's contributed to today and come along. Really appreciate your time. Again, thank you, YY, Alias, Josh, and Abraham for your insights and for your work throughout this semester and other semesters to understand what students are doing and to come and share them with us so that we can all use them in our teaching. And everyone, thank you so much for being here. In 10 minutes time, we'll be kicking off with small changes, big impact. Thank you.